What would you do as a landlord if you had a hoarder as a tenant? I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today out of Idaho. But before I get into this article, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll continue to bring you great articles about landlords and real estate investing and anything about the eviction moratorium that I can find. So this article, it's coming to us out of Idaho, and let me tell you, this is one of those things where I come across little articles that not everything I do has to do with the eviction moratorium, but I try to bring you little interesting articles about stuff that happens to landlords throughout the U.S. too, and this is one of those. So it says, and it comes from the Associated Press, apnews.com, it says 85 abandoned dogs found in an Idaho home after a tenant is evicted. Oh boy. Yeah, as a landlord, I'm sure that most landlords who've done this for a while have had tenants who have left their properties in pretty bad shape after they, finally left. And, you expect it after a while, especially when you're dealing with low income tenants like I do. So, hearing a story like this and hearing about a landlord who has to deal with 85 abandoned dogs, well, that's a little bit beyond what I'm used to. So anyway, let's get into it. Police in northern Idaho say 85 dogs were found abandoned in a home after a tenant had recently been evicted. The Kootenai Humane Society took in 66 of the dogs found in the Kellogg home on Monday. It was the most animals the organization has rescued from a single case, KHS Executive Director Debbie Jeffrey said. Wow. Yeah, I've heard of animal hoarders before, and I've met a few, and they own maybe like a dozen dogs, but I've never heard of one that had 85 dogs. And part of this comes down to the landlord. Okay, were you doing the property inspections? Were you going, driving by the property? I do question what kind of property this was. I'm assuming this is a low income property where you don't have as high expectations for upkeep and everything as you would for a regular property. But at the same time, you have to wonder, hey, the landlord didn't see that this property was just basically getting destroyed by this tenant with over 80 dogs inside. Wow. I've never seen anything this bad, she said. Kellogg Police Sergeant Paul Twitt said the dogs were discovered when the landlord of the home and an animal control officer went to do a walkthrough of the property on Monday. The landlord had been notified the night before that there were several dogs living at the property and that they needed help. Yeah, it looks like the landlord didn't really even discover this until after the tenant was evicted. So, yeah, they had to go through the eviction process, and then they found out that, hey, this tenant really was an animal hoarder. Okay. You should have had that figured out a long time before that. You didn't. And now you're going to face the consequences for not keeping up on your own property. So, yeah, this is really kind of a teachable lesson for up and coming landlords, even ones who aren't dealing with low income tenants, that, yeah, you should be doing home inspections, or at least doing drive-bys and talking to your tenants and try to figure out problems before they occur. The tenant was gone when the landlord arrived, Twitt said. The house was filthy, with 85 dogs and 10 cats inside, including some puppies found inside the home's walls. Ugh, Jeffrey said. One of the dogs was dead, and another had to be euthanized. Nearby shelters agreed to take some of the dogs and the cats, Jeffrey said, but most ended up at her facility. Wow, not just 85 dogs, but 10 cats too. You've seen that show, Hoarders, or Hoarding Buried Alive, and I'm sure that you've seen that, yeah, people, they get really crazy. And when you got this many animals inside one house, you're talking about, urine and feces all over the place. The place just absolutely will stink. I mean, the stench will be so bad. If it had carpet in it, those carpets are ruined. Okay. In terms of the cats, when they are, in heat, they will just spray the walls, right, and get urine right up in the drywall. And the only way to get the funk of that out of there is by literally cutting the little squares out of the drywall and replacing it. Okay, so this is awful. This is absolutely insane, and we're talking about there could be scratches all over everything if there's hardwood floors, and it's gonna take a deep cleaning. It's gonna take a ton of work. It's gonna cost a lot of money to get this repaired, and I feel bad for the landlord, but like I said, this is really, it comes back to an issue of tenant screening and proper, just maintenance of the property, and trying to nip problems in the bud before they occur. Normally, with hoarding cases, you're working with temperament and illness and getting them to trust you, she said. These guys have not been abused. The animals were generally healthy, well-fed, and even had their nails clipped. Most were terriers, Jack Russells, and Chihuahuas, and some were pregnant. Some could be ready for adoption this weekend, Jeffrey said. You won't believe how cute they are. They are just the sweetest little things. You just want to hold them all, Jeffrey said. We don't have to spend time acclimating them to people. How she did that, I don't know. Twit said an animal cruelty investigation is underway. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the dogs. I love dogs. I have a dog myself. She's a pit bull, and what I'll do, I'll throw her picture up here on the screen, and her name is Sprinkles. And I just can't imagine people. They love pets, but by putting that many pets into a small house like that, it's really abusive, and they don't realize that they're abusing these pets. So, of course, I allow pets in all of my rentals because I do like pets, and my rentals are generally hardened for pets, so I do know what kind of damage they cause. And for this landlord, I while I feel bad for them, I still kind of, you yourself are partly to blame. You need to take responsibility, get this place cleaned up, and hopefully you'll have learned a good lesson, in terms of tenant screening and what not to do in the future in order to make sure this doesn't happen again.